Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear colleagues. Welcome to the monthly webinar for local governments and municipal authorities constituency, hosted by ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability in its capacity as the focal point. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE, and I'm also performing the task of the focal point role for ICLE. I'm delighted that we will be spending around 60 minutes, but maybe it would go beyond that in this webinar today. First, a couple of housekeeping rules. Many of you have been familiar with those, but for those who just joining us new or for the first time, we are recording these sessions. The presentation and the recording are made available on the YouTube channel and the website of ICLE. And we have for a kind of a basic webinar, the slides, and we have some guests depending on the agenda. During these presentations, you can type your questions. If there's anything burning, we can immediately react, but if not, we can keep them at the end so that we have a dialogue collectively. And during the dialogue, we will be more than happy to turn on your mics or cameras so that you can also intervene directly, or you can type in the chat box. So with this, let me I think I haven't shared my screen yet. Just a second. Yes, I think now I'm sharing. Is that okay?
Yes.
Obviously, today is not February, but this is September. That's the typo that you may have noticed. So we usually run these webinars in 2 time zones, one for the Eastern Hemisphere and one for the Western Hemisphere. And we also are supported in these discussions with our colleagues from the Africa Secretariat, who's running the nature agenda and the biodiversity negotiations. Today, they may not be able to join us due to some ongoing pressures, but we also have a huge agenda, so we will see whether we will have them contributing to the agenda today. In the afternoon, I'm also joined with my colleague Kale to moderate and manage the webinar. But as I said, we also have guests time to time, and depending on the agenda. And I'm very delighted to inform you that today we have 2 guests. Serin is from UN Habitat, who would brief us on the updates on the COP27 Sustainable Cities Initiative and the Urbanization Ministerial at COP27. And later on, we will also hear from Pablo from UCLG, who will also share their plans for the UCLG World Congress, which is part of our journey towards COP27 as part of their engagement in the LGMA process. So I would like to thank for them for their availability, and we will make sure that would be enough time for also Q&A for their slots as well. So with this, maybe we continue. Basically, we will have a number of things to cover today. It's mainly the updates, which has been happening since last webinar in August, but we have particularly very much focused on the COP27 planning, and as we said, on the Surge initiative or others. So that is our plan for today. Let's immediately proceed. For those again who are new in this sessions, this is the LGMA is one of the longest constituencies in following the UNFCCC negotiation. We're there together with business and environment groups since 95, since the first COP. And this is the official engagement mechanism to the UNFCCC process. Obviously, starting from 2013 onwards, we are also working on behalf of the Global Task Force. We have more than 45 networks who are UNFCCC accredited, but we're also reaching out those who do not have these accreditation because it's bureaucratical challenges. We are mainly trying to influence the UNFCCC process officially, and you can see that on the way, especially on the way to Copenhagen, we wanted to make sure that the UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol was ignoring us. They were ignoring us, but it should be corrected in the third cycle of the climate regime, which happened in the Paris Agreement. And since then, we have even elevated our engagement. And at the Glasgow conference, we have made sure that time for multi-level action has come. We have our website, citiesandregions.org, where you can see how in an annual basis UN processes LGMA could be engaged, how we influence the negotiations, how we participate in the action agenda, which is the Global Climate Action Champions and Marrakesh Partnership, how we work with the presidencies, and each year this is different because of the uniqueness of the presidency's conditions. And we also continue our work with the Friends of Multi-Level Action, which is, in fact, group of nations that we are actively involved, because when it comes to negotiations, it is the parties who put the text on the table, and we would like to work with them, but also work with them in the implementation of the multi-level action. An update for those who are familiar, this is some screenshots from our website, which is now opened. COP27 website is also available on our homepage. You can find our calendar, our journey, and you could go through our strategic planning towards COP27, which is now branded under multi-level action delivers. That is our motto that we're using. And what do we mean by multi-level action delivers? We are hoping to have more NDCs, and we could talk about it later on, because there had been some interesting cases, although it's very minimal, but there are a lot of promising examples as well. To go to climate emergency mode of action, to bring new topics to the debate, and we will go through this in the agenda of COP27. To support the first ever climate and urbanization ministerial, we are very proud that it is finally announced, and Sharon will go through it. And of course, empower our partners in the region, Africa, Mediterranean, Middle East, and North Africa. You can also go through the links for our records and webinars as well, and the next ones will be in October, November, and December. Obviously, the one before COP26 to 27 will be the last one, where we will gather all our intelligence about our agenda and deliverables and outcomes. Just to recap, time for multi-level action as our achievement in Glasgow, we had some nations raising their ambition from the local and regional government contributions. We have cities raised to zero commitments and regions raised to zero commitments as well. We have mobilization at the 400 plus representative in the blue zone. We had our home of our constituency, the multi-level action pavilion, and we have received huge progress that multi-level now is embedded in the Glasgow Climate Pact, and numerous articles are available in several decisions as well. all was particularly made possible because of the strong unity of the constituency. As we said, inside the blue zone, it was the multi-level action pavilion. We are grateful for your collaboration, 70 plus sessions, 30 plus partners, and even online visitors, which was announced as the first hybrid pavilion during the COP preparations as well. Let me not go too much on this, but in the negotiations, we are seeing that every article, every agenda item we have announced since the beginning of this year, there's unprecedented progress, which gives us the confidence that this COP, we will really be making a huge change, and it's demonstrating that in the second phase of the Paris Agreement, we are on the track for a multi-level action. Um, Again, we do not have to waste too much on time on that, but it's just that is a cyclic process. Currently, official authority is still in the hands of the UK because they are the president of the COP26, but incoming presidency is the one who's shaping the agendas. And on the first day of COP in Sharm el Sheikh, they will hand over, and it will be fully in the hands of the Egyptian delegation. In the Egyptian delegation, we are in touch with the presidency, Minister of Foreign Affairs, as well as Champion and Minister of Environment. And especially with this unique year, we are also very, very delighted to be engaged with the Minister of Housing in Egypt and other ministers as well, which is again a unique demonstration of whole of government approach into the climate action. First update, Urban 7 is one of the newcomers of the global diplomacy, city diplomacy, or urban or subnational diplomacy. It was particularly gained attraction in this year because G7 presidency Germany had a huge vision of it. But even much better, the communique from foreign affairs, from development cooperation, from climate, and up to heads of state, we had huge recognition, unprecedented, and it's concluded with their last ministerial, which was first of its kind, ministerial on urbanization under the G7. And the good news is that in the previous processes, we were slightly engaged, but it was not in full detail because at the beginning of this year, Urban 7 was not recognized as an engagement group. But throughout the year, there was such a good positive and such a good fruitful relation with presidency and all the G7 members. The Urban 7 representatives and UN Habitat executive director as an observer were both at the table. They were encouraging and interacting with the ministers. Obviously, they did not sign the communique, but they were really considered as an equal partner. That is a very, very promising conclusion. And we're grateful for Mayor Kurz and Deutsche Städtetag, Global Parliament of Mayors and Icle, for their elevation of our profile. And the good news is that the Japanese 2023 G7 presidency has also confirmed an urbanization minister will continue in 2023. And especially the environment ministerial, we're hearing that they will also have a special focus on local action and multi-level action during the environment ministers G7 presidency of the Japan in next year as well. If you are interested to hear more about the G7 and Urban 7 process, especially, you are more than welcome to join the webinar that will be taking place next Wednesday, which is part of the Daring Cities mobilization, which will be an affiliated event of Daring Cities, but it will be primarily hosted by the BMZ, Engagement Global, and GIZ. And we are also delighted to have Mr. Jochen Flasbach joining us into this dialogue. In the past couple of weeks, we had a very important agenda for a long time. Later on, we had a dialogue. The first dialogue with the presidents on the logistics was in June. There was a webinar, sorry, there was a presentation, but that was not too much available. We even heard this presentation much later on. It was a webinar between the logistics ambassador and of the presidency and all the stakeholders, constituency focal points, and it was webcasted. You can watch 1.5 hours of dialogue on the web. It is uploaded. There were moments of some tensions, but it's obviously because the people would wish to have clarifications. We from our side, the most tensions issue is on visas. And here there's one clarification. Now, unfortunately, the website still doesn't have a new text into the section on visas for COP27. But the thing you should be aware is that Everyone who is registered as the Blue Zone participant, which is the UNFCCC, they are eligible to waive their visa fees, which is $25. But this can only be done if they apply in person to the embassy of their country. If this is probably more costly because of the travel you would make and domestically, you may opt for the option that you go to electronic visa application. And in this case, your visa waiver will not apply, which means you will register just as a tourist to attend to go to Egypt, and you will pay with your credit card. But the important thing is that either this way, which is directly from visa, electronic visa by paying, or by in-person application to the embassy without visa fee, you should complete this before you start your travel to Sharm el-Sheikh. Visa upon arrival is not encouraged, and particularly not for COP27. I know, I have even experienced in the past, or even nowadays, many people can still get visa upon arrival in Egypt, but because of the expectation of around 40,000 participants, neither Egyptians nor UNFCCC wishes to see long queues in the airport, at the airport. Therefore, either at the visa embassy or through electronic visa, get your visa in time. And electronic visa is also very speedy. It just operates in 2 days, and it's very smooth and functioning very effectively. So let's check any questions so far. I don't see any immediate reactions. So no, we can continue. Orientation to COP27. This is similar to what we have discussed in COP26, which is now good news that this is becoming the usual practice. So be aware, we have two main zones, the blue zone, the green zone. The blue zone is anything that is only accessible by those who have UNFCCC badges. And the green zone is that you may be anywhere in Egypt or Sharm el-Sheikh with or without COP27, but these areas you can all go without necessarily a major registration like UNFCCC. Obviously, there are differences. Sharm el-Sheikh is a bit different city than what we have seen, for example, in Glasgow. We were in the city center. We in Sharm el-Sheikh are mainly in the hotel zone. And Sharm el-Sheikh is one of the newest cities, just a couple of decades long history. So we are not expecting to have major events in the city of Sharm el-Sheikh. We are, as ICLE, in touch with the governor of South Sinai, because in Egypt, governors are much more influencing in managing their cities. In the past, at the biodiversity COP, we had good relations. We still hope there will be some interactions with South Sinai governorate, but we haven't confirmed this yet. Therefore, we, as ICLE at least, are putting most of our efforts, like 95% of our efforts will be in the blue zone. Those who are in Glasgow, you may remember, we were hosted in Glasgow City Hall. So many events were taking place in Edinburgh. But here in COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, we believe it will not be that much. Therefore, workload into the UNFCCC blue zone is much more important. There may be some applications in the green zone. We haven't seen this details yet. In the blue zone, we have three main axes. One, our home multi-level action pavilion. We will go through it into details. It will be hybrid. Then UNFCCC, there will be negotiations. We will mobilize ourselves. We will submit the documents. We will interventions. We will deliver interventions. There is already UNFCCC side events. We are already happy to have LGMA members having confirmed their side events in different dates. Presidency agenda, we will see Marrakesh partnership. These are all UNFCCC related process. And then there are other COP27 blue zone, German pavilion, Japan pavilion, India pavilion, European pavilion, or even partners like NDCP partnership or WWF. They all have their own agendas, and very, very, very likely all of them have an agenda for cities or urbanization or multi-level action. It may not be in the same day, it may not be the whole day, but there are sessions, and that's why we have to track as quick as possible our information. And this is the next step in the next couple of days and weeks as LGMA. We shared this calendar before. It goes day by day. The important thing is that on the 7th and 8th of November, the World Leaders Summit, it is still not clear how much accessibility will be enabled to observers. And you would also notice that there's no UNFCCC side events. on these 2 days. But there are pavilions which are open, and that's why we are also working for our pavilion to make available events on 7th and 8th. But we would like to plan this in a later stage. We'd particularly focus on the other days, and 7th and 8th will be a very special case depending on the agendas. Marrakesh Partnership, you have been hearing that they have been mobilized progressively since Glasgow. Now there's even more integration with the Race to Zero and Race to Zero. Now there are more discussions on breakthroughs, and you'll see now in throughout these 2 weeks there will be additional events, and these are mainly now crafted. The concept notes of these events are more or less clarified. Now the people, the UNFCCC and the partners will reach to these partners to assign the speakers in person or virtual as well. So that will be the next step. One thing, COP27 presidency, in addition to Marrakesh Partnership, they have been working in unprecedentedly. I mean, I have to once again underline that it's such an passionate and ambitious leadership from presidency on the support and collaboration for ambitious action. These are the list of initiatives. Some of them are officially announced, some of them are still in the making, but we are proud our initiative is one of them that has already been announced. And here is the mapping of the days according to these themes. It's a bit different than the presidency, but they are complementarity. Here on the 17th of November, Solutions Day, there's a number of events, and one of them is Housing and Urban Ministry on Cities and Climate Change. The important thing is that in every day there is a number of initiatives announced, but there are not every day has a spatial ministerial. And when we say ministerial, we're talking about a ministerial beyond ministers of climate. So we know there will be a finance meeting, finance ministers and climate ministers will come. It seems there will be agriculture ministers and climate ministers also talking. Other than that, the one that is having a ministerial is the cities and the urbanization, the urban development minister. So that is the one thing that is unique, that is making our initiative different than all the others. Before I give the floor to Serin in a couple of seconds, I just wanted to remind ourselves about where did we come here, or how did we come here. When I was looking for all these preparations, I realized that this proposal to have a discussion with different ministers and mayors and governors has been first spoken 10 years ago in 2013, which was the first time UNFCCC negotiators were focusing on cities and urbanization in the official negotiations towards Paris Agreement. And this was, when I was presenting this keynote, it was my proposal in the sense that we want ministers of urbanization and housing and so come to this space, because there's also a reality that definitions of urbanization ministers are different diverse from country to country. But I'm very happy 10 years later, a dream is coming true and coming to reality. And therefore, I'm delighted to now invite Serin to lead us about, actually it will be a kind of a dual presentation, both on the initiative surge, but also probably on the ministerial. The second maybe a bit more abstract at the moment because it's still in the making, but surge has made huge progress. Serin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yunus, and I hope you can hear me.
Very well.
Very well, great. So yeah, the urban ministerial, let me maybe start with that, and then I introduce the search initiative as well. The urban ministerial, of course, as Yunus has mentioned, has a huge history behind it. It has a huge traction, and I mean, where we stand today is an effort done by LGMA, by urban networks, by UN Habitat, but also with great thanks to the COP presidency, actually, to give us that space. I mean, 10 years later, but I guess also kind of like nagging, a continuous nagging of why urban issues are so critical in the climate negotiations made it happen. And I think just to give us a little bit of like also that backstory, 2 reports have been released by the IPCC this year, making very, very clear why cities are especially vulnerable to climate change and why drivers of solutions can come from cities and city networks. We have heard from UN Habitat publication on the NDC assessments that we now have in comparison to 2016, an increase of 84% of urban content in NDCs, in the revised NDCs. So member states are asking for actually an urban focus in their NDCs, in their climate frameworks, in their climate actions. And that's the only way forward, how to really localize this ambitious climate actions, I believe. And I'm really grateful to do all of this as UN Habitat, but together with our partners. We can't do this alone. Everyone needs to pull together, and that's where we are today. And I'm really grateful for that. A second thing that also really drove it to become an urban ministerial as it is today is an executive board meeting that UN Habitat facilitated at the beginning of this year, where the member states asked our executive director, the lovely lady in the middle, surrounded by ICLE and WRI and the COP presidency colleagues, where they basically requested, can you gauge your interest with the COP presidency and see, could we maybe negotiate that the urban ministerial comes to COP? Let's bring the Paris Agreement to the cities. Let's bring urban ministers, environment ministers, but also transport minister, housing ministers, all these ones that are significant to shaping our cities to the UNFCCC process. So this is the entry point for us, for UN Habitat to come in, but also for all the different partners, of course. So currently, as it stands, we have this housing and urban development and climate ministerial meeting at the 17th. Apologies for always flipping in the slides, but at the 17th of November at the Solutions Day, it's anchored there. It's going to be a 2.5 hours meeting with about 280 seats of capacity. What we will do to ensure that every stakeholder group has its contingency to be represented, we will ensure that there is a clear contingency for ministers, so urban ministers, transport, housing ministers, and then there's a clear contingency for local government to be part, and then there's a clear contingency for non-state actors such as the urban networks, LGMA, and all these partners, with also, of course, dedicated speaking slots. We will arrange for the speaking slots as well, but in terms of participation, I think that is also critical to understand. It will be an open door meeting, but we will facilitate a registration in advance so that you can kind of make sure you have your seat in there. We will expect it to be really crowded, but at 280 participants per seat, we kind of want to, of course, leverage that our priority partners and so on are there. So hopefully this will give us the opportunity for that. I'll stop here for the urban ministerial. I think it's going to be quite exciting and quite something at the COP ministerial. You have background noise, I guess, right?
Yeah, Serin, if you can request your colleagues, because people wish to hear you very well.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'll quickly ask 1 second.
So thanks for your patience.
Oh, that's fine. She's also presenting. That's the open office culture. So we're in the COP presidency initiative. So basically, as Jonas mentioned before, there are 17 different initiatives that have been proposed to get forward. But actually, the initiatives that are really taking the track, and we're one of the front runners, is the one from led by ICLE, UN Habitat, and the COP presidency on SURGE. It's Sustainable Urban Resilience for the Next Generation. This is still a working title as such, because that title SURGE exists in a World Bank initiative, and we don't want to, of course, replicate it, but we're still in that negotiation with the COP presidency to acknowledge that there is already a SURGE, the name, and to come up with a new name. So we proposed a couple of new names for that, but this should be more on the administrative issue than a substance issue, because the substance in itself will remain the same. The SURGE initiative as it stands right now has been really gaining traction. So it was developed during the subsidiary meeting in Bonn, at the climate change conference in Bonn, where we basically had negotiated with the COP presidency to come in and launch an initiative dedicated to urban systems resilience. That was really well perceived. And then during the World Urban Forum in Katowice, we have engaged interest who would be actually on board to support such an initiative. And out of a sudden, there were like 50 different organizations in the room on such a short notice, and really excited to really support this initiative. initiative as it stands. Then we had a consultation process because it was really dear to us that the initiative is not prescripted, but it actually is developed by the stakeholders themselves. So Yunus, me, and other key stakeholders have facilitated a workshop in Cairo at the 27th of July, on the 27th of July, where basically all these different actors from UN agencies, intergovernmental agencies, member states were there, on urban networks and so on, they all came in and have given their contribution to say what are their entry points and key like kind of do's and don'ts for the initiative, what needs to be there to be really impactful. And that was then the phase where we had this open stakeholder process, and then also a process for review, and came up with a search initiative that is today signed up and registered to over 40 to 50 organizations. I think that is quite something. If you think of, like, you know, it kickstarted in June and today is only September, and it had so much traction already. So the executive director of UN Habitat, she then decided to bring the member states from UN Habitat and the permanent representative to the governing bodies to that attention as well, so to secure also member states and bilateral donors for the initiative itself. That's the lovely picture you can see in the middle, and that also led to more and more sign up from member states to the initiative. And let me now go to the content of the initiative itself. That was more the process of how we got there collaboratively. And yes, so what was really important for each of the members, and that was the consensus where we arrived together, is basically come up with like 5 work streams or working groups that are like tracks for the initiative to get traction, to really be impactful. Those 5 working groups are under overarching guiding principles, such as the initiative needs to be equal and parity on adaptation as well as on mitigation. The initiative needs to be nature focused, nature positive. The initiative needs to be clear on resilience, clear on net zero, and so on and so forth. So there are like 10 different principles that are the backbone of the working groups. Then you have the working groups itself. So the initiative looks at buildings and housing, urban energy, urban waste and consumption, urban mobility, and urban water. And each of those, as you can see at the side, has their objectives to it. You have as cross-cutting themes decided by, again, the entire multi-stakeholder group, that we will have multi-level governance as the backbone of these in those different working groups. You will have climate change action planning, so that governance and planning as the backbone, urban territorial planning, climate finance, data, and capacity building. So we really hope to be very, very holistic here. Thank you very much. Maybe the next slide. Then I can come to the governance structure. Thanks a lot. So basically, as it stands today, and again, you know, this is something that needs to get traction and needs to be, you know, supported by the different organizations. Let me go from from bottom to top. That's a bit easier. If you think of the 5 working groups, each of the working groups have co-chairs, co-leads, and then it's open for any participation who has a focus in the working group, such as buildings, housing, urban waste consumption, urban energy, urban mobility, or urban water. So to be then very holistic and also representative, we said the co-chairs need to be 1 co-chair from an Annex 1 country and 1 co-chair from a non-Annex 1 country, to really bring that focus on like the donor driven, but also beneficiary driven impact into it. For now, we have secured co-chairs for buildings and housing. It's coming through for urban waste and consumption and urban water, and we're still trying to see like who else would like to be a co-chair to make that balance right. Then we have the co-leads as non-party stakeholders, which are then the different technical agencies or city networks that have a stake. So for example, in buildings and housing, we have unit there, who's the secretariat of the Global ABC and the World Buildings Council. As the co-chair, by the way, that would be in that case, for example, France and Morocco. So you have that kind of like structure in place so that it is driven by the people that already have existing initiatives. So we don't create anything new. We convene the initiatives that are already out there. And I can let you know already, for each of the initiatives, we already have like 30 to 40 groups signed up to say we are going to support that initiative overall, and we're giving technical advisory and backstopping, especially to following working groups. Going now a level higher, that's the Global Secretariat. So the Global Secretariat is hosted by UNHabitat and ICLEI. It's our in-kind contribution to SECOM2 staff dedicated to the Global Secretariat, which will then also give that umbrella function for the working group itself. There's a steering committee as well that defined by the working group leads and the Global Secretariat, and together all of that makes, and all members that are contributing makes the Global Search Alliance. That Global Search Alliance will basically report back on what have we achieved, what is the roadmap, what are like the trajectories, what do we define as success, and that is the momentum where basically can prove how search initiative over the course of time has gained traction and success. So that is where we stand. We really look forward to your sign up. I'll send the registration link in our chat in a minute, and feel free to sign up until COP. Feel free to reach out. One more note to the urban ministerial that I've forgotten, as we are currently distributing or planning to distribute the invitation as soon the COP presidency gives the green light. Please, if you don't mind, share your interest also with Yunus and ICLEI, that from that urban network and local government. We have all priority stakeholders in there, so you are in a list. So so that by the time you arrive at the gate or the door of the meeting, it's not already fully packed. That's the only maybe request or idea I would put forward. And yeah, over to you, Yunus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Seren. Just once again to complement and strengthen, this is really valuable, and ICLEI and LGMA for 3 reasons, and that was when Mayor Sefiani was explaining this in his intervention at the Nairobi meeting virtually. First of all, it is holistic. There has been efforts on some sorts of urban action. Buildings was part of it, slightly transport, and this initiative, as you have seen, there's a plethora of topics under the urbanization, and they are not ignored. They are visible, and they are also being addressed, especially including planning aspect of it. So this is the first thing. Second, it is inclusive, that we as local government and municipal authorities network are part of it since its beginning. We have been part of it in the design, its evolution. So it is really an respected partnership. And third, really, that is also not just an initiative, as you have heard. We are hoping that there will be regular monitoring, and especially this connection to the first ever climate and urbanization ministerial, which is, of course, cannot be done without UNHabitat on board, because it's their mandate to address urban issues at the UN system. But if we can make this a power of a regular agenda item of COP, just like finance, you have seen finance ministers are coming every year now, almost every 2 years or every year. If we can expect that urbanization or multi-level action is becoming an agenda, this will change the way we are engaged in the UNFCCC process significantly. It will not be anymore just here and there. And it's exactly our expectation from Glasgow. We said that we have now a word, multi-level. Now we will very likely have a bigger paragraph. We will have a bigger agenda, so that the second phase of the Paris Agreement through multi-level action is in the making. That's why this initiative is so important. It is so important that this initiative connects to the existing initiatives, but introduces things that has not been done before, introduces topics that was not addressed before, and introducing approaches that were not tested before. That's why it is additional. That's why it is unique, but it is complementing on the existing efforts. I see some comments from Eva and Claudia as well. Let's come to that. Maybe first of all, C40 Claudia says that C40 is interested in climate and urbanization ministerial, and similar things was typed by Eva. Let's be realistic, or let me clear. In the next couple of days, you would receive a communication, because we would ask the presidency to reach out to the networks through LGMA, and that's why these regular meetings are important. So we'll circulate what is being currently designed or considered, and how we could make sure we are there as a constituency, and we will make sure the diversity of LGMA is there. We have to be realistic. It's 2.5 hours event, but now it will also be complementing, now that it is not just that event, but it is the day before, the day after, during the day. There will be numerous opportunities. So let's be um, innovative, let's be inclusive, and let's make sure that we are approaching this in its entirety, not just that 2.5 hours event, because its outcomes as important as its discussions there. So we can continue, because now we will talk about the pavilion. And I assume Seren will be here. Maybe she could come on if needed during the next couple of minutes. Um, and this is the layout of the facilities in the hotels area, the International Conference Center in Sharm el Sheikh. COP27 multi-level action pavilion is part of this. Actually, there was an error here, and I don't know where it's gone, but it is in this blue zone area, in this blue and tent. It will be reconstruct. It's already being constructed. Um, it is very similar to what we have tested in Glasgow in terms of its, let's say, structure. So we were originally thinking for a larger space, I must confess, but until last minute, it was still not clear financially, and also to receive commitment. So it was too risky for us to go something bigger. Let's hope that building on these experiences will be even better in Dubai in COP28. But as of today, it is 125 meters square. So it's at least 25% bigger than Glasgow. It has also a more functional bilateral meeting room. In Glasgow, it was a bit small. And we are expecting that the use of the virtual screens and connectivity will be even better. And definitely there is larger audience seating and podium speaking availabilities as well. Um, Here you can see how we will make sure of this space. So we have, as you remember, already opened an application form for interest, expression of interest, with this tentative calendar. Once again, as you have seen, on the 7th, so Sunday is closed for sure. 7th Monday is very likely will be closed. So that's why we just keep it as tentative. We will start with 8th of November, but we will come back to the agenda of 8th of November later on. And now we have already received applications for all these sessions. The good thing is that thanks to the in very, very welcoming offer from Scottish government to be continue to be co-host, even though this pavilion is beyond their territory. Scottish government is the biggest partner, and that's why we are proud to announce them as the host of this pavilion. And because of their support, we are able to reserve 2 full hours every day to African cities and regions. Our colleagues in ICLA Africa are now reaching out to all the African partners to make sure they have their dedicated slots, and it's purely in their hands. It will not be interfered with anyone else in terms of the substance. It will be African-led process, and we are excited because it really will demonstrate how it is important to have this global solidarity, the way we are functioning our spaces, financial and technical and politically. Then we will split into 90-minute slot, as has been the practice. Um, and if you have noticed, we have also encouraged our partners to consider complementary themes that may not be necessarily addressed in the presidency or champions agenda. For example, we really want to talk about stock take for climate emergency. We really want to talk about loss and damage. These are not in the titles of the presidency or champions yet, but we want to have it. When we are discussing finance, we also want to discuss about our procurement power. When we are talking about 100% renewable energy, we want to focus on 100% renewables, demand side management, um, and when we are talking about cities, it is also NDCs, how our local and regional developed contributions could contribute to the national one, so that this multi-level vertical integration is there and discussed appropriately. So that is the value of having our own space that we could freely discuss and present our information. And of course, we will feed into the champions. This year, there will be even more synergy between the champions. We are already agreed with the Secretariat of the Marrakesh Partnership that we will assign some slots in the pavilion that will complement the efforts of the champions. We are very proud. It's not put here with logo, but this has come just yesterday. The Minister of Housing of Egypt will be acting as the co-host of the space, which reflects on all the discussion we are having with them on the way towards the COP27 over these months, from WUF 11 in Katowice, even before the World Cities in Luxor. So Minister of Housing is putting all its efforts and capacities to support our climate pavilion and climate initiatives. So we are very happy. We will be working with the ministry how to formulate their engagement, and we are expecting them to even bring topics from Egypt also to the pavilion, either in the African cities slot, but also in other slots as well. As of today, the deadline was 20th of September, and we received more than 15 interests of applications to reserve slots from the LGMA partners. We received from UN agencies, UN Capital Development Fund, UN Development Program, national governments like the German Minister of Environment of Japan, or Ministry of Environment and Climate Action, or sorry, Economics and Climate Action, BMWK from Germany. We are really excited that this really will reflect the spirit of multi-level and cooperative action. To recap, this was the moments of mobilization that we have seen. We are aware, when we are delighted to welcome Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon on the first couple of days as part of the Leaders Summit. We are aware Council Leader Susan Aitken has also confirmed, and now we will be mapping with all the LGMA partners. You remember we have worked on an open source Google form to track who is coming and when and which priority themes, so that then we can inform the UNFCCC, the champions, and the presidency, so that they can incorporate the leaders of LGMA into their processes as appropriate. This is the pavilion. Once again, after today's meeting, because we will also continue at 4 p.m., we will kick off the information on both the pavilion, especially the ones that we received, and we will make sure that is the first calendar is announced at the Daring Cities next week. But we will also start the open source file of our tracking of our delegation, the badges. One thing that you may be important to know, the LGMA did not have any badge for until now. For the first time, there is this opportunity. We had a discussion with the UNFCCC Secretariat. The original 25 slots for the MPGC human settlements groups, we are negotiating so that maybe some of this will be allocated a bit more to the buildings community, because they're a bit less in terms of partners. But we will have additional slots from the UNFCCC so that we can use this for the LGMA partners, and that will be also again a shared information. I know Secretariat has reached out to some of the LGMA partners, but we will make sure this is reached to all the LGMA members so that we share this appropriately and effectively. Yes, the stock take is now next agenda. Let me check if there are any points, especially for this one. Yes, Serin has shared the link in the chat box for the endorsements. Maybe we can discuss it, but we also have a mandate as LGMA, or let's say a duty, to approach to our national governments in the global north, especially, so that it is not only a process owned or led by global south. Global south openness. We have seen so many parties from South Africa to Morocco, from Costa Rica, who have expressed their solidarity and engagement, but we also have to have governments from the global north, either through their ministers of environment or through their ministers of urbanization, to officially express their interest to join us in this process to the Egyptian government, so that then we can continue to work on it. So that is a task we have to do. By when we would need to submit an expression of interest to have an event at Poland. The deadline was already over. It's 20th of September. The enrollment form is still open. We will also type this into the chat box, but we would check whether we could have some flexibilities. Patricia, would you like to contribute in that discussion?
Eunice, I'm not sure about the deadlines about this, but we can check with the team, and yeah.
Yeah, the application form is still open. Patricia, can you share the Google form link here?
Yep.
We cannot promise because we have already started to communicate with our partners, and we have already started to receive more than what we can accommodate. But we'll do our best, and because there's this some changes, it seems that at least those who have applied until today, we will very likely confirm them, maybe not the same day, not the same slot, but very likely we will accommodate them because we have managed to make the first mapping. If we have more from now on, and I also want to give this caveat because with some partners, we already discussed that we have taken on board their interest, even though they have not submitted. This was a question of like a trust relation between among us. I don't want to go into each of them one by one, but I can assure you that as long as you have talked to me, that you are in the process of making an application and not done so far today, be aware it is highly likely that it's already included in our list of partners, so that you do not have to be stressed. But if you have heard it for the first time today and you have not talked to me before, we cannot promise or guarantee as of today, but all is possible because we are also making it a conservative approach, especially with this high level planning. There may be some slots more than that is available. So we would like to go step by step. We would like to go with the ones that is safe, secured, and then go to the some optional positive things. Carl is asking, is the intention that surge working groups feed into the COP urban ministers, and does it have a dedicated budget beyond UN Habitat staff? Saren, if you want, you can take note of this, but let's go because we have another partner who's waiting on the line. And by that time, maybe you can also come up with your other questions because you are seeing other questions from Eva and others. I suggest we compile them all together. Global stocktake is taking place. The first one was in Bonn. The second one is taking place in Sharm el Sheikh. The important point is that now they are receiving applications both through Marrakesh Partnership, but also through constituencies. We have talked with our partners in the past and who have joined the first one, which is ICLE, FMDV, and Committee of the Regions. As of today, the dates are still not announced. So it's a bit not so clear how we will engage. And during the first one, we have communicated to the UNFCCC that we would like to make flexibility that maybe LGMA slots can be rotational. It could be possible that some names who have committed, they may not be there for full 5 days. So we would like to make sure that there is this flexibilities. We will convey this to the UNFCCC once again. But as of today, initially we have communicated from ICLE, FMDV, and Committee of the Regions. We know it is all global north, and that's why we want to check the availability that LGMA slots could be replicatable, or sorry, interchangeable, so that we can also accommodate global south, because at that time of this application, we were not aware of who would be there, but we want to make sure there is this diversity on our participation. But one important point, you remember we have committed for a stock take for climate emergency. The first exercise was tested at the New York City Climate Week. ICLE US has worked with climate mayors and CDP and USDSN, US UCCRN, and among other partners, how it looks like. So they have come up with the first sketch, and this is aligned with what we have been discussing, the Talanoa format, where we are, where do we want to go, how do we get there, but on three basic blocks: the national NDCs, the local commitment, and global climate justice, and domestic climate justice. We will be sharing some more ideas on that, how we could roll it out. And we're also in touch with some partners like Yungo, some parliamentarians, so that this could really be a global mobilization at the local level that could change the narrative towards Dubai. And once again, we would like to convene the global multi-level stocktake before the third stocktake in Bonn, back to back to daring cities, and that's what we are prepared for. Um, and towards COP27. It is an urban October we are in next week onwards, and it's so many partners of LGMA have been mobilizing themselves. We will of course have daring cities, but we have others like the financing for cities summit, climate change Africa. Uh, Pre-COP is coming. It's a bit challenging because of the visa and the overlapping agendas with Dakar and Bonn and others. Um, and we have C40 Mayor Summit. European Committee of the Regions are getting their own, let's say, position at the plenary, and we have UCLG World Congress. And with this, I now invite Pablo to share their plans on how they would like to lead the UCLG World Congress as a contribution to the climate COP as well. Thank you, Pablo, for your joining us. And sorry we have kept you a bit long, but I think it was worthwhile for you as well. So the floor is yours. You can. I'm stop sharing my screen.
Sure. Thank you, Yunus. Yeah, don't don't worry. I'll be very brief actually. So maybe we'll finish up in time. Yeah. So let me share my screen. Am I sharing? I hope so.
Yep.
Good. So this I'm gonna present a little bit what the road to the UCLG World Congress in Daejeon this year is looking like. We will get together. We get together once every 3 years as a municipal movement to to let our heart beat as one. And this time in Daejeon, from the 10th to the 14th, we'll be discussing what we're calling the Pact for the Future, which is our political declaration of how we want to shape the future for humanity from the local government movement. This in our World Congress, where we will conduct 91 sessions and over 320 speakers, we are organizing the Pact for the Future through three plenaries. The Pact for the Future for the planet, for people, and for government. And I think for us, the most important one to discuss is the Pact for the Future for the planet. I'm going to go a bit fast. Planet Day at the UCLG World Congress will happen on Thursday, the 13th of October, where we'll count with a series of sessions organized with ICLE and with the Global Economic Mayors. The first one will be the Town Hall on Culture and Climate. This is our dialogue with organized civil society on how culture is shaping the climate discussion. We're then organizing a high-level dialogue on declaring climate emergency, what this means, the process for it, and what it unlocks. This will count with three Korean mayors and three non-Korean mayors discussing this tool organized with ICLE. Our most important session on climate this day will be the Future for Climate Justice, organized with GCOM, and discussing how to achieve climate justice, what has been done, how benefits and burdens have been unevenly distributed all throughout these decades, and how multi-level climate action can shape and achieve climate justice. We have also a city research and innovation lab organized by the Global Committee of Mayors, where we are going to be presenting some of these multi-level actions that have, helped us achieve more ambitious climate action. And then we'll have the plenary for today on Planet, closing the Planet Day, where we will discuss the planet axis of the Pact for the Future. This will be, of course, fed by all of the previous sessions of today and by a consultative process that UCLG has been leading on how to be ambitious, how to narrate this transitional change we hope for planet. So how I engage, I think very important that you, as our partners, engage and send your comments and your articles and your voice on how we can be, as a municipal movement, involved in multi-level action and shaping climate action. Please do register at the forum. We still have some places open and some some space for you to attend. I'll leave the link now in the description. And yes, this is mostly it. We really hope that we can present the Pact for the Future at COP27, and of course all that we have been discussing with the UCLC sections and local and regional governments at COP27 as well. Yep, I've been passed.
Congratulations, Pablo, and congratulations to the whole UCLG family. This is really ambitious and is exactly what we need, especially in these challenging moments of the threats to multilateralism is expanding, and we have worked with you how we have managed in those hard days of the Russian invasion to Ukraine, and how local leaders were also reacting to this, but also making sure that all wars are also prevented, and the damage to planets is stopped, and also we have not gone too much on the details, but the Urban 20, which was an initiative led by UCLG and C40, also managed in this difficult year to come up with this declaration when G20 is having difficulties to adopt their own communiques. So Urban 20 made another demonstration of how local leaders could unite their forces. We know that some signatories were missing, but collectively it was really a very huge demonstration. And that's why the continuity of this efforts in the UCLG World Congress is a triennial World Congress, and then feeding to the UN and all the other processes and the COP, of course, is very, very helpful. Great, thanks. And Pablo has shared links that those who have not done so could join them. It is 2 weeks afterwards. And those other partners who are also having their events in the next couple of days, feel free to share in the LGMA mailing list so that we can keep this on board and make sure that we are sharing the bringing the outcomes to COP27, especially the multi-level action pavilion. I would like to check first of all if I have my colleagues from Cities Biodiversity Center who are able to join us to share updates on the way to Montreal summit of biodiversity negotiations, which also has very unique agendas. I know Stefania is here, but I also know she's waiting for Ingrid. What we could do, Stefania, if you still have time, we could just open the floor for our LGMA partners if they would like to intervene on any points that was discussed so far, until if Ingrid comes, and if not, maybe if you want, you can share verbally anything that is important or essential. So let's use the time in that way. Let's give the space to LGMA partners. If there's anything on the way to COP you would like to share, if not, then we go to Stefania. Okay, I see no hands. Stefania, anything you want to share with us?
I think I'm very happy. I know that Ingrid will be joining soon, so I will let her speak. But I mean, to give an overall overview and also details and specifics, but I'm very happy to be, in the meantime, give some highlights about all the different developments which are going to be taking us to Montreal. There has been a lot of, I would say, hectic negotiations between Canada, Quebec, and Montreal, because you know that there are all the three levels. as much as with China. You know that China is keeping the presidency, and of course it has to be very much smoother down how their presence is going to be kept substantially and institutionally within the frame of the Montreal COP15. Now we have been as ICLEI Africa and CBC very actively communicating and keeping dialogues with both Montreal and Quebec and the Secretariat of the Biodiversity Convention, and with China also to facilitate the conversation, and very much involved into the summit program, the 2 days, which have been confirmed. I think it's 10 and 11. And also the program overall, very much busy working on submitting potential side events within the frame of the institutional and formal CBD. In fact, on behalf of cities with nature and regions with nature, together with the major stakeholders and partners, we by Friday, which is the deadline, we are submitting a proposal for a specific side event together with the IUCN Region 4, UNEP and UNEP WCMC. But I would say that the very big announcement, which is going to be formalized over these days, but we can in a way anticipate, is the action pavilion. The action pavilion is going to be happening. You know, overall 6 pavilions have been granted by the Secretariat of the Biodiversity Division, and our action pavilion is one of them. It's going to be accommodating around 40 people. We are going to be having projectors there so that we also can accommodate video recordings, and it will be kept from the 8th until the 18th of December. So we are very much involving both ICLEI regional offices and our partners to be filling it in with major substantial events. And then the idea is to really going through and across with thematic topics like for example, sustainable food, together with the Milano Food System Pact, and we might be also coming up with something related to youth, together with the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, and with the Berlin Urban Pact. So we're really very much enhancing the current initiatives and projects that we are partnering up with. This is the highlights from my side, and I don't know whether Ingrid would be joining for the specific details concerning you know, the negotiations, where she's very much involved. She hasn't read my message, so I think she's very busy. But I mean, I think that this very, you know, information is the overall that can really orientate our colleagues for the COP.
Thank you, Stefania. No, I think that gives really a good background, and we are saying that official information will be available soon. This is just 2 weeks, or actually 3 weeks after COP, so which gives a bit more time. Of course, going to Montreal in December is also a challenge, but I remember 2005 climate COP in Montreal. It was also December, but it was one of the most ambitious in terms of its outcome. And we were also very happy when we were having the World Congress Weekly in Montreal. So as the host city of CBD, I think Montreal is the best place to host such an event. And as you have heard, we are exchanging experience and then learning from each other in both of those processes or other UN processes. For example, pavilion experience is now for the first time being replicated in biodiversity. In the biodiversity, there's an action plan, 10-year action plan for cities and subnationals. This doesn't exist in the climate space. So let's hope we can exchange such experiences so that implementation can benefit from our lessons learned. in the biodiversity space, the observers can document submissions on the text if it is endorsed by one party. This is not the case in the UNFCCC. Again, there are different modalities, but overall, it's really good that the three Rio conventions are really the ones that are in opening doors wide open for local and regional governments, and then that also is inspired with the other parallel process in the UN system. So thanks a lot, Stefania, and good luck.
For sure, absolutely. And of course, yes, you're saying that the expectations are really very high for the new plan of action emerging from the Edinburgh process to be adopted at COP. And of course, then hopefully it will also be announcing cities with nature and regions with nature officially as the designated global commitment and action platform for the subnational constituency, which is certainly a milestone for claim.
Excellent. Great. I see some messages were coming back and forth. I assume most of them are answered. Patricia, just if you're still there, let me know if there's any more pending question on the chat box. You also have shared the link for the pavilion expression of interest. That's good. And Anthony was asking about our joint tracking sheet, which will be available tonight, and that you will receive it with the links to this webinar by tomorrow morning by the latest. Yeah, we would like to make this space as a tradition of LGMA is inclusive, as broad, and to show our diversity and unity as such. So with this, we are already going 10 minutes beyond our 60 minutes, but I think it was a worthwhile considering all the loads of topics. I'd like to just check whether Serin or Pablo has any concluding remarks from their sides.
In the interest of time, I would say no, but I see you all at COP, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yes, same as Serin, all good here, and hopefully not only at COP, but also at Deja.
Exactly. So congratulations to all our partners who are mobilizing themselves for COP before, at, and after. We will make sure this COP, if it is going to emergency mode of action as expected by the UN Secretary General, it is doing so because of our engagement as local energy governments, because multi-level action is into the space that we could address climate emergency more effectively. And this could also open doors for our members and constituencies that they can get more technical and financial support and recognition as appropriate. With that, I'd like to thank you all for your participation for today's webinar. Next one is at 4 p.m. CST, Central European Summer Time today, and you will receive the links the day after. Thank you, and have a nice day and evening wherever you are.
Goodbye. Bye.